Level 1. The Mule. You swallow the first balloon at 3 in the morning in a bathroom that smells like bleach and desperation. The man watching you has a gun tucked into his waistband and eyes that have seen this exact scene 1,000 times before. You're not special. You're not even particularly unlucky. You're just available, which in this business is the only qualification that matters. The balloon is smaller than you expected. Smooth latex wrapped around compressed powder, sealed with surgical precision by someone who learned the craft through repetition rather than instruction. You swallow it dry because there's no water. Then another, then another. By the time you finish, there are 63 balloons sitting in your stomach like a ticking clock. If one ruptures, you die. If airport security finds them, you go to prison for a decade. If everything works perfectly, you get paid $3,000. $3,000 to carry 0.5 kilogram of cocaine from Bogota to Madrid. The math breaks down to about $47 per balloon, which is also roughly what your life is worth to the people who handed them to you. They didn't ask your name. They won't remember your face. If you disappear into a Spanish prison or a morgue, there's another person waiting to take your place before your flight even lands. Most mules are men, but a substantial portion are women. Ages range from desperate teenagers to grandmothers with medical bills they can't pay. The common thread isn't demographics, it's vulnerability, debt, coercion, threats against family members, or simply the grinding poverty that makes $3,000 look like salvation. Some mules know exactly what they're doing. Others are told they're carrying documents or electronics, lies that dissolve the moment customs agents start asking questions. You board the flight with a passport that might be real and a story that definitely isn't. You're visiting a cousin in Madrid. You're attending a wedding. You're starting a new job. The story doesn't matter as much as your ability to tell it without sweating, without fidgeting, without showing any of the terror currently climbing your spine. The balloons sit heavy in your gut. Every shift in your seat feels like tempting catastrophe. The organizational structure that puts you on this plane operates on a simple principle: maximum profit, minimum risk. Drug mules exist because they're expendable shields between the product and the people who actually matter. The man who handed you those balloons reports to someone who reports to someone who has never touched cocaine in his life. The hierarchy stretches upward through layers of insulation, each level further removed from the consequences that you're currently living. Upward mobility in this world is a myth. The research is unambiguous on this point. Moving from mule to dealer to importer is statistically improbable, intentionally so. The structure is rigid because fluidity creates vulnerability. You can't inform on people you've never met. You can't identify organizations you don't understand. The system is designed to keep you exactly where you are, useful and ignorant, until you're no longer useful at all. 18% of female prisoners in the UK are foreigners. 60% of those are serving sentences for drug offences. Most of them are mules. They sit in cells far from home, serving time for crimes that generated millions in profit they'll never see. The economics are brutal in their efficiency. A mule costs $3,000. A kilogram of cocaine wholesales for $30,000 in Europe. The return on investment is tenfold, and the primary cost is human, which makes it the easiest cost to absorb. You land in Madrid 12 hours after swallowing those balloons. Your stomach cramps. Your mouth tastes like copper. You walk through customs with a smile that feels like a grimace. And somehow, impossibly, you're waved through. No secondary inspection, no questions. Just a stamp in your passport and a gesture toward the exit. The man waiting outside the airport doesn't introduce himself. He hands you an envelope with €1,500, half of what you were promised, and tells you where to go for the next 24 hours while the balloons pass through your system. You don't argue about the money. Arguing requires leverage, and you have none. You spend that day in a cheap hotel room waiting for your body to expel evidence of the crime you just committed. Each balloon that passes is relief and horror. Proof that you survived, but also proof of what you've become. When it's finally over, you flush everything except the drugs, which go into a plastic bag that you leave in a designated trash can in a park you'll never visit again. Someone collects that bag within the hour. You never see them, they never see you. The cocaine moves up the chain, increasing in value with each transaction, cut and repackaged and distributed through networks that span continents. Your role is complete. You're paid the remaining €1,500 and given a phone number to call if you want to do this again. Some mules quit after one run. The psychological weight is unsustainable, or they get religious, or they finally understand the mathematical certainty that luck eventually expires. Others become lifers, running drugs until they're caught or killed or simply aged out of usefulness. The average mule makes between 5 and 20 trips before something terminates their career. The something is usually prison, occasionally death, rarely retirement. But here's what the statistics don't capture. Some mules, a tiny fraction, demonstrate aptitude beyond simple desperation. They're calm under pressure. They're observant. They notice patterns in how the organization operates, gaps in security, inefficiencies in the process. They start asking quiet questions. Who supplies the balloons? Where does the product originate? Who manages logistics on the receiving end? These questions are dangerous. Curiosity in this business is punished more severely than failure. But occasionally, very occasionally, curiosity is recognized as something else. Potential. A mule who understands the broader operation has value beyond their stomach capacity. They can coordinate other mules. They can manage quality control. They can solve problems that require more than blind obedience. This is how you stop being a mule. Not through ambition exactly, but through demonstrating intelligence in an enterprise that mostly requires stupidity. You become useful in ways that extend beyond your physical body, carrying contraband across borders. You become someone worth investing in rather than simply using up. The transition doesn't happen quickly, and it doesn't happen for most. But for those who survive long enough, stay alert enough, and prove valuable enough, there's a next level. It's not advertised. It's not offered. It's simply a door that opens when the organization decides you might be worth more alive and thinking than expendable and ignorant. Level 2 approaches differently than you expected. Level 2, the coordinator. They give you 3 mules to manage, not friends, not partners, just bodies that need instructions and oversight. Your job is simple in theory. Recruit people desperate enough to swallow balloons, prepare them for travel, ensure they don't panic at customs, collect the product when they arrive, report problems. The reality is managing human beings whose survival instinct fights against every instruction you give them. Your first recruit vomits up half the balloons during the flight. Turbulence, anxiety, bad preparation, something ruptures the careful swallowing sequence. You're not on the plane, but you get the call when she lands. Airport bathroom. 12 balloons expelled prematurely, product compromised. She flushes everything in panic. €20,000 gone. The organization wants explanations. You provide them carefully, emphasizing her failure rather than your selection process. They accept this once. You learn to screen better. Desperation isn't enough. You need people with specific psychological profiles, calm under pressure, capable of following instructions precisely, able to compartmentalize fear. These traits don't correlate with poverty or education. You find promising candidates in unexpected places. A nursing student with gambling debt shows better operational discipline than a career criminal. A middle-aged accountant facing bankruptcy handles customs interactions with perfect composure. The mathematics of your position become clear quickly. You're paid per successful delivery, penalized for failures, and expected to maintain a specific throughput. 3 mules running twice monthly, 18 trips. Success rate must stay above 80% or your value proposition disappears. You're not irreplaceable. You're barely relevant. The organization has dozens of coordinators managing hundreds of mules across dozens of routes, but you notice patterns they don't expect you to notice. Certain airports have lax security during shift changes. Specific airlines attract less scrutiny. Particular passport stamps create assumptions that reduce inspection probability. You start optimizing routes based on data you're not supposed to be collecting. Your success rate climbs to 92%. This gets attention. A man whose name you never learn offers you different work. Not managing mules, managing product flow through an entire corridor. Southern Spain to Northern Europe, 300 kilograms monthly, coordinating transportation across 5 jurisdictions. The money is substantial. The risk is exponentially higher. You're now visible to law enforcement in ways a mule coordinator never is. Intelligence agencies monitor logistics coordinators. They build cases slowly, watching patterns, documenting relationships. You accept because refusing signals fear, and fear in this business is career death. Level 3, the logistics operator. You're managing 17 people now, drivers, warehouse workers, corrupt officials who expedite customs clearance, accountants who structure payments to avoid detection. None of them know each other. You're the only connection point, which makes you valuable and vulnerable simultaneously. If law enforcement flips you, the entire network collapses. If the organization suspects you might flip, you disappear. The product arrives in shipping containers labeled as agricultural equipment, commercial tile, automotive parts. The manifests are real. The companies are real. Their invoices match customs documentation perfectly. Hidden inside legitimate cargo is product packaged in ways that defeat X-ray, drug dogs, and physical inspection unless someone knows exactly where to look. Your job is ensuring nobody looks. This requires corruption, but not the crude bribery that attracts attention. You identify customs officials with exploitable vulnerabilities, gambling addiction, extramarital affairs, financial problems, political ambitions. Pressure is applied through intermediaries they never connect to you. A customs inspector in Rotterdam waves through containers because someone paid his daughter's medical bills. A logistics coordinator in Antwerp expedites shipments because photographs of his affair would destroy his marriage. They don't know they're working for a drug trafficking organization. They think they're helping a legitimate business that happens to be generous. The cocaine that arrives in those containers is worth 4 million euros wholesale. Your cut is 30,000 per successful shipment. You're running 2 shipments monthly, 720,000 euros annually. More money than you imagined when you were swallowing balloons. Less money than the people above you make in a quarter. You're living in a modest apartment, driving a 5-year-old car, maintaining a cover identity as an import-export consultant that withstands casual scrutiny. The money accumulates in accounts you access through structures designed to obscure ownership. You're not wealthy in visible ways, but you're secure in ways that matter. You can disappear if necessary. You have resources to relocate, documents that create new identities, cash reserves that don't require banking systems. Your paranoia becomes sophisticated. You sweep your apartment for listening devices weekly. You rotate phones monthly. You never discuss business in cars, buildings, or open spaces where surveillance might capture audio. Every conversation happens in carefully chosen locations with background noise that defeats recording equipment. You trust nobody completely, including the organization that employs you. Then someone in your network gets arrested. A driver carrying 2 kilograms to a distribution point. Minor arrest, routine procedure, should be handled by lawyers and resolved through the legal system that's designed to move quickly past low-level offenders. But this driver starts talking. Not about you directly, but about shipments, frequencies, volumes, patterns that suggest organization rather than independent operation. Law enforcement applies pressure. They offer reduced sentences in exchange for cooperation. The driver doesn't know your name, doesn't know your face, but knows drop locations and timing patterns. This is enough for surveillance, enough for warrants, enough to start building a case that connects isolated incidents into conspiracy charges that carry 20-year sentences. You learn about this through channels that exist specifically to identify law enforcement attention before it becomes operational. A corrupt police officer who monitors investigation databases, a lawyer who represents multiple organization members and notices pattern in prosecution strategy. Information flows upward and instructions flow down. Shut down the corridor, eliminate evidence, disappear anyone who might provide testimony. The driver is found in a warehouse 3 days after his arrest. Suicide, according to the official report. Hanging. No witnesses, no investigation beyond cursory examination. Message received by everyone in the network. Cooperation is fatal. You're told to go dormant. Stop all operations. Maintain minimal contact. Wait for instructions that might come in weeks or months. Your income stops. Your access to organization resources stops. You're isolated, which is protection but also vulnerability. If they decide you're compromised, you'll receive no warning, just a visit from people who specialize in making problems disappear permanently. This is level 3, not the top. Not even close, but high enough that falling means consequences measured in decades or death. You survive by being useful, careful, and lucky. The luck won't last forever. Nobody's does. The question isn't whether something terminates your career. The question is what that something will be and whether you'll see it coming. Level 4 doesn't exist for most people in this business. The hierarchy above logistics is reserved for those born into connected families, those who built networks over decades, those who possess resources and relationships that can't be acquired through competence alone. The drug trade isn't a meritocracy. It's a hereditary aristocracy where surnames matter more than skill. You can manage corridors, coordinate shipments, generate millions in profit, and still never advance beyond middle management in an organization that views you as sophisticated but ultimately replaceable infrastructure. The mathematics are simple. Organizations like the Sinaloa Cartel operate across 40 countries with revenue streams measured in billions. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel employs nearly 20,000 people through franchise cells that answer to centralized command. These aren't operations you join through ambition. These are dynasties you're born into or married into or connected to through decades of proven loyalty that predates your involvement. What happens instead is lateral movement. You become valuable enough to other organizations that they recruit you. Albanian networks expanding into South American cocaine. Balkan groups establishing European distribution. African syndicates building Asian corridors. The global drug trade is fragmenting into specialized networks that cooperate and compete simultaneously. Your expertise in logistics, corruption, and operational security makes you portable, not upward, but sideways into organizations where your knowledge creates immediate value. But here's what nobody tells you at level 1 when you're swallowing those first balloons. The highest levels aren't about drugs anymore. They're about infrastructure, money laundering operations that move billions through legitimate financial systems, real estate portfolios that span continents, political influence that shapes policy. The drug lords who survive aren't traffickers. They're businessmen who happen to traffic drugs among dozens of other enterprises, legal and illegal, that insulate them from the consequences that destroy everyone below them. You'll never reach that level. Nobody does through merit alone. The pyramid narrows too sharply. The protections are too sophisticated. The distance between logistics coordinator and cartel leadership is greater than the distance between mule and coordinator. You can see the next level. You cannot reach it. That's the architecture of the trade. Visible hierarchy that disguises impermeable barriers. So you operate at level 3, managing risk, accumulating money, waiting for the arrest or the bullet or the internal purge that ends careers without warning. Some coordinators last decades, most last years. Nobody lasts forever. The trade consumes people at every level. The mules die from ruptured balloons or prison sentences. The coordinators die from law enforcement or organizational house cleaning. The only people who survive are those who were never truly vulnerable, whose wealth and connections existed before the drugs and will exist after. You started this because you needed $3,000. You continued because you discovered aptitude for work that rewards moral flexibility and operational precision. You'll end it because something beyond your control decides your utility has expired. That's the trajectory. Not rags to riches, not criminal mastermind, just survival measured in transactions until the mathematics that govern this business determine you've reached your statistical endpoint. The power ladder isn't climbed. It's survived one level at a time until survival becomes impossible.